And so my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so like we just found ourselves in the middle of this spot that we first focused on gratitude. Okay. But then the second thing that we did is we just as a family, instead of saying, why God, we just said, okay, God, what do you want us to learn through this?
Once you've overcome okay, it has happened to me and I can't believe, and why me and why God and why now? And so once you get past, that is when the learning actually starts happening.
This is in the Psalms where it says, so it is the glory of God to conceal a matter, but it's the glory of kings to uncover it. And so the journey of our lives, like, what if it's just meant to be the journey of learning?
So doing that active listening, you ask the question that invites them to allow you to listen. Shows love. And it creates that margin of space that allows, and it creates this safe space for them to ask, what do you think?
I'm telling you guys, there's so many older men that are out there that they're filled with wisdom, and they're sitting in the spot of like, man, am I going to die with this in me? Or is there anybody I can pass it on to? And to have a younger man say to them, hey, can I learn from you? Gosh, it's like, like, oh man, I'd love to share my life, my experiences, my wisdom with you.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Rising Tide Life podcast. So glad you're here. So glad you're here. My name's Austin Samuelson, and we have Matt Carpenter and Dave Weber back with us again today. So excited, guys. We are excited that you're here. We had the last podcast was just phenomenal. We talked about gratitude.
Yeah.
Very thankful for that podcast.
I'm thankful as well.
See what I did there?
Really, for sure. Thankful for, I think thankful for the friendship in it and the discussion. But even, something we were talking about just off camera just a little bit ago is like really thankful for the principles of God, like that there is a truth and a revelation that's out there that God has made available to us that's eternal. Like this is a practice that is eternal, that in any time, in any circumstance, in anybody's life, the principles of God are true and they give life. And so, even just thankful for the principles and practices of God, for sure.
Yeah. So Matt, what are we going to talk about today? We started with the first question. There's a second question, right?
Yeah. So we're on this big topic that is cultivating an atmosphere or a culture of abundance versus deprivation or scarcity. Okay. And the three bad questions of scarcity or deprivation. And this is where deprivation is always the precursor to sin. Okay? Whether it was in the garden with what did God say you cannot? That's the question was asked from the serpent to Eve that started to break the world, right? The world was broken after the sense of deprivation that Eve had, followed by rebellion. And then it was shame, blame, death. And so Jesus came to reverse that curse, to restore the world, right? And so to reverse all of these deprivation questions and put them back in a place of health, life, instead of death, blame, shame. So that big principle of abundance versus deprivation, we need to fight against or remove the questions of what I don't have.
Yes.
And the greatest one to remove that is gratitude, like we talked about last time. The second one is what I can't do. And then the third bad question we talked about is who I am not. And so we're now on our second categorical good question.
Yes.
Good meaning the access to God, to the infinite God through a finite process or finite engagement. And so the second good question categorically is the question of what am I learning? And so instead of focusing on what I can't do, what am I learning through this? And so all of this is framed in a journey of becoming. And I know that we talked about this even a little bit earlier today, but one of the things that I find so often in talking with men especially is is our conversation centered around what are we doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What did you do before? What are you going to do afterwards? It's like doing. But God engages with us as human beings, not as human doings.
Yes.
And so our journey, and this is what C.S. Lewis says, it is our journey is a journey of becoming. And so who are we becoming? And nobody is static in their identity. We're all becoming something. It's just Lewis says you're either becoming more heavenly or you're becoming more hellish. And definitely, like, I want to be on the heavenly side of that. I want to be becoming more and more heavenly. And so what that means is we need to always be learning. And even this is something I said of you last time, Dave. And but I think it's true of both of you guys. Like, you guys are both learners. And that makes me want to be around you. It makes me want to be around people like you that are able to engage with the truth and not just learn it academically. Because that's something that you can keep everything in your head, right? But to learn it experientially and to live it. And so when we're talking about this thing of what am I learning, we're not just trying to talk about academic knowledge.
Yes, definitely not.
Or theoretical knowledge. We're trying to get to a place of practical or experiential knowledge. Like, how do I live this stuff out? How do I live out what I'm learning so that I can be somebody different? And so it's about this journey of becoming. So at least that's where our hope is, to focus throughout this podcast on this question that is the question of what am I learning? Yeah.
Okay, so walk us through that a little bit more, Matt. Like, so the question is, what am I learning? How do we apply that? How do we live that out? Or what does that change within us when we start asking that question?
Yeah. So, I mean, definitely as we go through difficult things in life, okay, let's just take that for a little bit.
Okay.
We could interact again with a sense of deprivation that is, oh, this didn't go the way I expected it to go. I was supposed to get this job. I was supposed to get this promotion. I was supposed to be healthy. I was supposed to, like, have this car or this thing happen with my kids or whatever. And so when circumstances come our way, the way that we engage with it, we can either engage with it like, oh man, I can't do this now because things didn't work out for me. My expectations weren't met. Or instead we can focus on, God, what do you want me to learn through this? So one of the questions that gets, and really kind of an unfair question that gets asked of God is the question why. Okay, so why, God? Especially when something bad happens.
Yes,
right?
That's
like,
true.
There's a death, there's a sickness. Like, again, things don't meet our expectations, and we want to ask this question: why, God? And that is a question that is rooted in what I can't do or what I don't have, right? And so we say, why, God? And now I was talking to somebody yesterday, I think. Yeah, I was talking to Jacob about this yesterday. And we were talking about, man, if we're going to ask the why question, really, we should ask it more when something is like going really right. It's like,
When
man,
we get blessed.
why me? Why me, God? What did I do to deserve all this? That would be a much better time. If we're going to ask God why, better ask it when things are going really well. But what a good friend of mine, Eli, says, and I love this. He says, God doesn't often answer the question of why. And so instead of asking why, we can ask this question, God, what do you want me to know about this? What do you want me to learn through this? And if we can ask that is a question that God will answer. And so whatever we're going through, and I'll try and I'll start off just by maybe sharing a specific example from my life. And I mentioned, I think I mentioned last time, just of a couple of years ago, going through my wife's diagnosis with cancer and going through that as a family. And of course, when you hear cancer, it is something that makes you deal with the worst of that, right?
Yes.
Cancer can mean anything from, I've got like like a growth on my arm that I just had to cut off and they put a Band-Aid on it.
Yeah.
Cancer can mean that, or it can mean
This is the end.
the end, and the very soon end. And so my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so like we just found ourselves in the middle of this spot that we first focused on gratitude. Okay. But then the second thing that we did is we just as a family, instead of saying, why God, we just said, okay, God, what do you want us to learn through this? What do you want us to know about you? Or what do you want us to know about ourselves or about the circumstances around us as we go through this? Even similarly, over this last 7 months, this is a question that I've consistently asked God. God, what do you want me to learn? And there's been so much. I think you mentioned this a little bit last time too, Dave, that we can get in a spot where, especially if it doesn't just like happen to us, but we think somebody did something to us. Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, there was for me, like I did feel a sense of injustice and I felt like something was done to me. Right. That I could have focused in that but instead tried to shift my focus to, okay, God, like I'm not going to focus on what somebody else is doing that's keeping me from doing something. But instead, God, you're a God of freedom. And so, God, like, what do you want me to learn through this so that I can walk into a freedom, so I can become the man that you want me to be? And so, so I think that's at least starts the conversation. And maybe I'll pass it off to you, Dave. Like what?
Yeah. So it's we live in such a risk-averse society. When any calamity happens, the immediate investigation or the immediate attendance amongst authorities will be, okay, but whose fault is it? Okay, and I mean, and even in insurance industry, we have a statement which we call the act of God, because when we can't actually, when it's too big to be somebody else's fault, then
just blame God.
It's an act of God, and I mean that in many areas is an exclusion for insurance purposes or for a claim to be put in. And I think Tim Keller so beautifully used to say that he said that most of our struggles initially when we face calamity, personal struggle, a medical or a family crisis, most of that struggle is based around the absolute shock that it has happened to me. And to wrestle just that part to the ground, once you've overcome okay, it has happened to me and I can't believe, and why me and why God and why now? And so once you get past, that is when the learning actually starts happening. Because if we look at most of the heroes of the faith, whether they are biblical or throughout the centuries, people that were martyred or persecuted or just went through massive suffering, we quote them and we admire them and we look up to them, not because of what they went through, but how they went through it and how that drove them to Christ, that it actually drove them to a place of intimacy. And whether it's Lewis or whether it's Spurgeon, we can quote them as saying that it is too often that intimacy with Christ requires suffering on our part. It's not in the times of prosperity and so on that we actually achieve intimacy with God. It's in that time that are difficult. And I'm reminded of Jacob at the Jabbok River and wrestling with God, wrestling until daybreak, and I will not leave you until you have blessed me. And getting up from there and being renamed, and from being a usurper, being one that has wrestled with God and has overcome and has got to this place of there's the sense of, I now know who I am. I now know the legacy. I now know where I'm going to. I now know what is ahead for me. And I mean, the story throughout the Bible, we see injustice throughout the Bible. So if we're looking for a neat life and a white picket fence and 2.5 children and a retirement, I think we only scratch the surface of relationship with the Lord, of intimacy with Him, and of what He wanted to achieve through us.
Yeah.
So much of what we do go through, and just coming from a place of gratitude, even gratitude is regardless of your circumstances. And we've spoken about that in the previous episode about how we are all struck by how grateful and even how deep the worship is of people that have nothing. They have nothing, or very close to nothing in our eyes, and yet they possess the kingdom. They possess everything because they worship from an absolute place of having learned that the dependency is on God. So I think I've learned more and most in my times of absolute despair, in times where it's just all fallen apart, when there's nothing left, and you're not even holding onto the hem of His garment, but onto a thread that's coming loose from the hem of His garment, and you're just hoping, and you're just holding on to that, and trusting that He's going to come through for you, and or that He's going to bring you through this.
Yes.
And I think for all of us, we've had dark times where you're wondering, and then I think the learning starts happening when we go beyond the why God and why me, and we start asking the what is the next step.
Yeah. What do you want me to learn through
What
this? What
am I to learn?
How should I respond to this?
And how is this equipping me for what I'm about to go
there you
through?
go. Yeah, right.
Because when Moses walks,
No, definitely, it's a preparation, right?
when Moses walks for 40 years, in the wilderness, behind sheep, so he can lead for 40 years the Israelites like sheep through that same wilderness.
Right. And if the Israelites would have responded to God in a way that's like, oh, like, no, like when do we get out of here? You didn't like bring us to the place you promised us. They never would have got there, right? Like it was 40 years to do what?
Yeah.
To learn.
To learn.
They needed 40 years to learn how to engage with God. And at least what I hear you saying is, Dave, like that true learning doesn't just produce intellect. True learning produces intimacy. Is that right?
That's right. That's right. And we are often never going to get the answer why. We are never going, and in many situations that's going to be the case, that you're not going to get the. So I remember specifically growing up at the age of my brother was 3 years old, and he was walking in the street out in the road, and we had gravel roads, and the road scraper came past that basically flattens the gravel, and somehow, I don't know how, he got behind this vehicle, this tractor. It reversed and it trapped him, and then the blade went and cracked his skull and then took off all the skin off his skull. And how he, by the grace of God, managed to get to a hospital with an ambulance, and he stopped breathing and he had a tracheostomy, and how for 6 months my brother was in ICU and in hospital. And I remember those because my parents, my folks were never at home at that time because they were in hospital every day, and how they prepared my parents for a boy that was going to be a special needs child, had a brain injury, had irreparable damage. He probably wouldn't walk again. And how my father just kept holding on to the fact that he had this intimacy with God, and the Lord kept reminding him of that story in Samuel of Rizpah. And I don't know if you, it's not the most well-known story, but it's a story where there's Israel has a famine, And David asks why, and it's because of the sins of Saul. It's one that one of the other people nations needed he needed to atone for that, and so that nation asks for 7 sons of Saul, and they take the 5 sons of one of Saul's daughters, and they take the 5 sons of Rizpah, of the 2 sons of Rizpah, and she had been one of his concubines. So here she is, the only legacy she has, the only way forward she has is these 2 sons, and they are hung from a tree to atone for the sins of Saul, and she's innocent. And she could have said, why me? And wept and just been forlorn and maybe even taken her life. But she stands by day and she holds off the birds of the air. And by night, she uses fire to hold off the animals, the beasts that want to come and eat her sons' bodies. They've been desecrated as Jewish, as Jews. They should have been buried by sunset. And she does this from the start of the barley planting to the time of the barley harvest. So this is months, probably a season or 2 seasons that she does this. And it so moves not only the heart of God, but it moves King David that he has their bodies taken down and has them buried along with Saul. And this even then Saul's bones are taken, and Jonathan's, through the action of a woman that shows absolute defiance in the face of aggression. She's totally innocent. She had no say in being his concubine, I would presume. She had no say in the sons being hung up there, but she did that out of an absolute place of just this, I'm not going to let anything take my boys. And my father would pray, Rizpah, walking up and down the hospital passages. And my brother is an elder in the church in Cape Town, in Durbanville, and he's an attorney at law, and he's helped so many of the churches with their legal contracts and so on. And I think I've learned through all the years that when you get to that absolute place of being forlorn, of being broken, when what happens through, whether it's government enforced racism, or whether it's other legislation, or whether it's disease, or just some random accident, or alcoholism, or some other addiction, that if we stop short because we want God to give us the answer why, we don't cross that line to be able to develop intimacy with Him, because we go back to a place of entitlement where we're saying, well, He first has to tell me why me and why now and why my family, and then maybe I'll. So,
yeah, almost like God, you first got to prove a bunch of things to me.
That's true.
Yeah.
And again, the attitude of our heart in learning gratitude, in leading in it, and learning to live in that is, it comes from a place of, I would say, developing intimacy. And unfortunately, that usually and most often comes through suffering.
Yeah. So definitely through, and most of what we're talking about so far is like the learning through hardship or learning through suffering, which is, it's probably could be argued is the best time to learn. It's not always the time that we want to learn, but if we're talking about what shapes us the most in life, is probably going to be hardship. Now that can either shape us negatively or positively, and it really is on the basis of how we walk through it, right? And so if we walk through it with the question that is, God, what are you trying to teach me through this? Then it'll produce intimacy, but also kind of what I hear you saying, Dave, is it'll produce also inside of us a preparation for what's next. You know, like that when we're going through something, God is actually shaping us and making us for what's next. And ultimately, that next is probably eternity. Okay.
Yes.
That God is fashioning us to be like Him. Okay. To be perfected through suffering. Right.
Yes.
And so that is the journey that we're all meant to be on, is to be perfected through suffering. Okay. But maybe a question I'd add to it is it possible to learn when things are not going bad? And how do we do that?
So it's interesting you ask that, because Deuteronomy chapter 8 verses 2 to 3, the Lord it says there, and after that it says, man shall not live by bread alone, and we know that from when Jesus gets tempted. But 2 and 3 says, I took you these 40 years to test you, okay, to make you hungry, to feed you with manna, which is the Hebrew word for what is it?
Yeah,
we don't
right.
know what it is, which your parents did not know, and then to take you into the promised land. So in times when times are good, he's still going to, because now they're going into the promised land. So, and the very next day,
So is God still
manna,
trying to teach us at those times?
God is still trying to teach us.
Okay.
And He's teaching us I think most often still through tests,
Yeah.
and still through and often through our desires.
Okay. So one of the things that I find is definitely for my own life, but also in the lives of other people, that maybe they learn through hardship, through suffering, and maybe it takes longer for some than others, right? But sometimes success is the greatest enemy of learning. And one of the things, I think it's A.W. Tozer that says this. He talks about that when somebody's had success, especially like maybe in ministry or in something where, well, I suppose it could be in business or anything like that, they start to think that because they achieved a level of success, that means that everything they did was right.
Yes, that's right.
And so then they become like the expert that is, now come learn from me because I did everything right. Because I achieved the success. And what I love the way that Tozer says this. He says maybe instead of saying, well, yeah, this is everything I did right, and therefore then I was successful. Maybe frame it in a place of, man, if that much happened, knowing that I probably didn't do a lot of stuff right, what could have happened if I would have done more right? Okay. And whether that's in ministry or in business, you know, and Austin, you've been incredibly successful in business. Like you opened up a couple different restaurants that franchised and built, you know, kind of across this region in such a way that like not only has made money, but also has like accomplished a mission. And so like, what are the things that either maybe you did at times when things were going well that you're like, man, like I still learned through that, or maybe I missed out on a lesson there because like it was going well?
Yeah. I mean, the missing out, I think, always comes back to what you're just saying of like, you begin to think you have the answers, or you begin to rely on, because I think success can breed independence, which when we become independent and we stop depending on our Father, that's a very dangerous place to get, right? Because then we stop asking that question, what are we learning? Because we think, okay, we've got the answers, we've been successful, we can do this. And so I think we have to really guard against that and really push back against that desire, because I think we have a natural, I don't know about you guys, but I have this natural draw to I want to be able to do it on my own.
Yes.
I don't want to have to depend. I don't want to have to ask for help. So I want to have this independence. So we have to guard against that. And so I think when on the contrary to that, Matt, I think it's what you said with Tozer, is asking those questions like, well, what could we have done better? What are we still missing?
Yeah.
And I think it all goes back full circle to this question of like, what am I learning? What can we learn out of this? What is there? There's still learnings to be had in that. And so remaining open to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely think whether we're talking about, is there more to learn in life? Yeah. For sure. And if you ever get to a spot where you think there's nothing left to learn, then you're probably the dumbest person, right? Like,
Right.
And oh gosh, I wish I could remember how this goes, but there's a saying that says that the smartest people in the world realize they know nothing, and the dumbest people in the world think they know everything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so really, the more that you learn in life, the more you realize you don't know. And I also think that's true not just of life, but it's true of God.
Yeah.
And so this is what John says about knowing, okay, or about knowledge. He says, this is eternal life. Not to get into heaven after we die. This is eternal life. And you know what he says? To know God.
Yeah.
That's eternity.
Yeah.
To just know God and to know him more. And the word know that's used there is not, again, it's not academic knowledge.
No.
And it's not even just experiential knowledge. It's intimate knowledge.
Yes.
It's the knowing that I would say, I know Kiki, my wife, in a way that you guys don't know her.
Yes.
I know her intimately. And I study her, but not as I study a book, right?
Yes, that's right.
I study her in such a way to like figure out like what it is that pleases her, and also what is it that like makes her frustrated.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
like
true.
because like whatever it is that pleases her, like I want to do that more.
Yeah.
Whatever it is that frustrates her, I want to do that less, right? And also, I want to know her in a way because I want to walk through things with her. And like some of the most difficult things in life, the gift of having somebody that I know alongside of me, whether that be a spouse, Kiki, or whether that be a God, Yahweh. It's like to get to go through things. That is eternal life. To know God, to know the Father and me who he sent is what Jesus said. And if that's what eternal life is, that's not about heaven after we die, because that's not what Jesus says. He doesn't say, and this is eternal life. When you die, you go to heaven. He says, this is eternal life, to know the Father and me who he sent. Like, then shouldn't all of our lives be like the participation in knowing more, knowing more of God? And here's the beauty of it. I think the more that we know God, then the more that we know ourselves. I think there's so many of us that we struggle with identity, and we don't know who we are because we've lost track of whose we are. And so we believe in a self-revealing God. Whether it's the creation story, whether it's the Old Testament or New Testament, our God is constantly revealing himself. And so what I think this is in the Psalms where it says, so it is the glory of God to conceal a matter, but it's the glory of kings to uncover it. And so the journey of our lives, like, what if it's just meant to be the journey of learning? Not academic, and not that I'm against academic. No. But what we're talking about is experiential and intimate learning. Man, that's a journey that I want to be on.
And experiential learning, I found that my best mentors have been all uniformly throughout all of them have been people that are humble, that did not own or patent the expertise that they had. And I'm talking about people in medical fields. I'm talking about, and it didn't take a position. I mean, I've learned from midwives and from nurses and from maintenance people much more than I've learned from, say, the professors academically. But they were people that they were humble, so they shared their knowledge. And the second thing is they said, come, let's go on a journey. Let me show you how to do this. And that was that true mentoring. And what that required from me, I found, was we use this, love believes the best. But when you do believe the best in those that you are learning from or those that you are teaching, there's trust and there's no, I wonder what their motive is, or I wonder, and you get out of that mode. And so what they plant in you or what you plant in them takes root. And that is such a big part of I believe, of learning, because as we said, too much of our learning comes from suffering, and we don't typically want our kids to walk across the road and say, "Don't walk across the road." No, you don't. And then, bang, they get knocked over. Okay, now you're on crutches. Now you've learned. Okay, that type of learning is also experiential, but it's pathological, and you don't build with that. So a lot of our learning, I find that humility is so important for bridging
it's
that.
essential for true learning.
For true
Humility is.
learning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And-
Absolutely.
And it's rarely positional. I must say that. I've learned from whether somebody's sitting on the bus next to you.
So in other words, like it's not about like, oh, like you have high position, I can learn from you.
Yeah.
But you have low position, I can't learn from you.
You can't. And,
Yeah,
and,
no, absolutely. We should be able to learn from anybody, right?
and again, back to that word I used in the last podcast about being innovative and ingenuity. Those were so often you find these stories of innovation, whether it be in the Second World War or whether it be in the tech era. That most of that happened where guys were not saying, but you're the boss, and okay, you're the guy that's providing the finance and so on. We treat each other like equals.
Yes.
So that's just the practicality of it. In that, in order to be teachable, you have to be, as you said, otherwise you'll be a fool. Is to be humble and just be open to the position that when somebody's giving you some advice or somebody's mentoring you by taking your hand and teaching you how to do something that they've mastered, that they're imparting something to you.
Yeah.
They're not doing it because they're trying to be proud.
Yes.
Or out of a place
Okay,
of
so
pride.
I think we've established a principle. There's a principle of learning, okay, that is, it's available to us at all times, whether in bad times or quote unquote good times. Learning is available to us. It's also available to us in any person, right? That we can look up positionally or look down positionally. We should be able to learn. But ultimately, like who we're learning from is we're still learning from God, right?
Yes.
And God is like
Yes.
constantly revealing Himself to us, and there's always more to learn about God and about life. So that's the principle. Okay, let's take 10 minutes and hit practice. Okay, like let's get this practical. How do we live this life of learning then? And one thing I'll throw out in this is, I think one of the practices of learning is we have to remove would-haves and should-haves, and dwelling in those. Okay, because like there's so many times, you guys, like whether it be like I preached a message or that I was just like, I just feel like it didn't go well, or I engage with my kids in a way that's like I just overreacted, right? Or I said something in a moment of frustration or anger towards my wife or to a staff member, that like I can just get stuck looking backwards in a place of blame and shame. Okay, deprivation, rebellion, shame, blame, death. Right, I get stuck there, of like I'm just beating myself up. Right, and I find this on the golf course. Okay, like and this is one of the things where I'm trying to engage with this with my kids right now, because golf is this. It's just a ridiculous sport.
It is.
It really is. Like one day I can go out there and I'm like, I'm ready for the PGA. I mean, not even close, really, but like I'm feeling great, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like hitting, and then the next time, like I've forgotten how to play, and it might just be the next day. Like I don't even know how to swing a club. Like I'm swinging. I think I'm doing everything right, and it's like the ball's going, completely sideways, right? And so I'm engaging with my boys. That is, if I dwell on the last shot, or if they dwell on the last shot that didn't go well, how's the next one going to go? Well, it's going to go bad again,
very poorly,
and probably even worse, right? And then if I dwell on that, how's the next one going to go? Well, it's going to go bad and even worse. So this thing of, what if we can remove would-haves and should-haves and could-haves from our life, and just say, God, I'm not going to sit in a place of blame and shame. What do you want me to learn? What do you want me to learn about you? What do you want me to learn about myself? What do you want me to learn about life? so that I can now look forward and I can now apply it. Do you guys think that would help?
Yes. So we change our language.
Yeah.
We change the way we say things.
Yeah. And even maybe even the direction of focus.
Yeah.
One of my, actually the guy that really discipled me the most in life, his name was Dick Schroeder. He said, Matt, like when you look back, take a quick look. Take
That's
a quick look back.
Yeah.
Because if you dwell in the past, like you need to be able to look back and learn. Okay. But learning is about taking a quick look back and then taking a look at right now, like, okay, God, so who am I and who do you want me to be? And then looking forward and saying, how am I going to do this different? How am I going to apply this different? And so I would say that's one way that we can live in a place of learning. What would you guys say that we could add to that? And how can we live this stuff out to where we live a life of learning?
So I would say we need to meditate on the word.
Okay.
And I mean, for most of us, just in a Western culture, we perceive meditation from the Eastern cultures to be to clear your mind, to make your mind absent of anything else, to just make it blank. But meditation, being a biblical principle, is to fill your mind with the Word of God, to fill your mind with truth. We all have read certain scriptures multiple times, but because the Word is living, because the Word is alive, and the truth therein is true, and is applicable to throughout the ages, to all situations, what that does is we are then learning anew and learning afresh.
Yeah.
So to meditate on His Word, and I think too often we use our, whether it be our quiet time or whether we use our time to maybe perceive what other people are saying about the Word, or to or whether it's a podcast.
So are you saying basically like, so what if we read maybe a little bit less, but then just ask God, like, okay, so God, what do you want me to learn about you, learn about myself through this, to just meditate on it? Good. I love it. I love it. What would you add, Austin?
Yeah, one of the thoughts that was coming to my mind is to trust in the learning process and step out of the why, God, why, that question.
Yeah.
We have to have a very solid belief that we have a good Father that wants our good. And I think the enemy wants to constantly whisper in our ears, like, I don't know, the world has it so much better. And we've hit a lot on, we learn through suffering, we learn through hard. And sometimes, if I'm just being honest, there's times when I look at it and I'm like, I don't know if I want that, I don't know if I want to go through that hard. I kind of want the easy. But really trusting that our good Father knows what's best for us.
That's really good.
And really believing that at our core, the more I think that we can meditate on that, like you're saying, Dave, and truly believe that. So when we do step into those difficult circumstances, we can then go to, okay, God, you want what's best for me, just like I want what's best for my kids. So you've got something good on the other side of this. You're going to teach me something. There's a purpose in all of this. What do you want me to learn?
Yeah,
I think
that's
we
so
can
good.
ask that question.
That's so good. All right. So one more thing I would add into it is I believe that we don't learn well in solitude or in monologue. Okay. And I think that's where in a Western society, so many times we find ourselves as men, even as Christian men, is where we find ourselves like alone. And we don't learn well in solitude, even if alone is about independence.
Yeah.
It's like, because it's like, oh no, I need to be strong. Like I need to show like a strong front in my company, in my business, or I need to show a strong front in my home. And it's like, we just feel, it makes us feel alone. We are actually are isolating ourselves into solitude and also in monologue.
Yeah.
That is, either it's our monologue that's like, it's just coming out of our mouths, right? Or we're in a place where we're only receiving monologue. Okay. And so so many of our spiritual experiences end up being a monologue from a stage, right? That's we listen to a 3-point deductive proof. It's called a sermon. and we're not dialoguing. We're not engaging with it in a dialogue. And whether you talk about, like, educators would say that's not the best way to learn, but even God would say it's not the best way to learn. And so so even to live in a place of learning, I think we have to get in community or communion, and then we also have to get involved in dialogue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Accountability.
And so even, and I think this is one of the things you were saying, Dave, is we have to be humble enough to look at some other person and say, you know what, I think they're living the life. They're being the person that I want to be.
Yeah.
Will I humble myself enough to say, hey, do you mind if we can have a dialogue? And man, like, what if we would just do a little bit more of that as men?
Yeah.
And you know, the kind of the anecdotal joke is a man will never ask for directions.
Yes. Yes.
And that's so stupid.
Yeah. Yes.
To never ask for directions. And I've been, you guys, like, I've been so guilty of this. And I would say half of it, and maybe this is an excuse, I don't know. I would say half of it is I like figuring things out, because I really do.
That is an excuse.
But there's
you're right.
another half of it that is I'm just prideful.
Yeah.
And so to ask somebody else would imply I can't figure it out. And I'm like, I can figure it out. You know, like, so just prideful. But man, what if we could create connections in our own communities? And this is something, like, just frankly, I've watched develop in our relationship, and I'm so thankful for it.
Yeah.
Because, like, you've kind of pursued after that, and in it, like, here's what I want to say, like, I've probably learned as much from you as you've said, man, like, I want to learn from you.
Wow.
Because, like, when we engage in dialogue, in community, like, God teaches both of us, right?
Yes.
That's right.
And what if we would do just a little bit better at this, you guys? That if we would connect generations and into community and into dialogue, like, don't you think we would learn a lot more?
Much more.
And so those are a few things I would say, just as far as, like, practices. What are the things we can practice? What if every man would kind of look for an older or a few older, and they don't have to be biologically older, just older in something you want to be, who you want to be, right? And just said, man, like, do you mind if I just ask you a few questions? I'm telling you guys, there's so many older men that are out there that they're filled with wisdom, and they're sitting in the spot of, like, man, am I going to die with this in me? Or is there anybody I can pass it on to? And to have a younger man say to them, hey, can I learn from you? Gosh, it's like, like, oh man, I'd love to share my life, my experiences, my wisdom with you. But then also, what if we could look and say, man, is there a younger person around me or people around me that I can, what if I could just give some of my life away and some of my experiences and some of my knowledge of God? Like, guys, like, I really think it would change our society, it would change our culture. So that's a couple of things on living in a place of learning.
Yes.
Let's talk for just a little bit on leading in the question of learning. And what I mean by that is, how do we lead in this in our homes, in our marriages, with our kids, in the marketplace, so that is spiritual leading is, again, less about giving great directives, and maybe it's more about asking great questions. How do we lead in a place of asking the good questions of learning?
I think the end of James chapter 1, it says, be slow to speak, be quick to listen, slow to anger. So often as leaders in our church communities, in our business communities, in our sports communities, in the medical community, we get asked to crisis manage, to solve, and so on. And then we do default to directives or so. But if you will figure out the need, and the Holy Spirit will reveal this to you when you ask the right questions. You come from a place of humility, but you allow them to give you the answers.
Yeah.
Because then you know where the need is. And we learn so much by going and asking questions. Like you said in the previous podcast, how Jesus so often asked questions. So what do you want from me? Do you want to be healed? What is your request?
Yeah.
And then it allows the people around us, specifically if we are leading from a place and where we've been asked to, it allows them to actually vocalize and formalize, because even in our own lives, you can't heal what you can't define. You can't even repent of what you're not willing to, or confess what you're not willing to define.
Yeah.
So to ask questions and to create a place where when you are leading, specifically in a spiritual setting, that you are actually listening more than you are speaking.
Yeah. Okay. So let's take this. Let's take this in a like, let's make up a circumstance with. Okay. Let's use you, Austin, with Ashton. Okay. So like, so you're in a dialogue with Ashton, and she's saying, yeah, like I was dealing with this with the kids, or with these relationships in homeschool world or whatever, and then now you're gonna lead spiritually, right? And so you're like, well, let me tell you what you need to learn through this.
Ooh.
How does that go?
Never goes well.
Yeah, it's like, quit trying to fix it, right? And so what if instead, what if you ask the question? What if you just get a lot better of asking questions, of learning? You know, that's just like kind of what you're saying, Dave. It's like being a little bit slower to speak and quicker to listen. Okay, and you know, part of listening is like just being quiet.
Yeah.
But part of listening is asking questions. Right?
Yeah. You know, that just recently in this past season, Ash and I have both gone through some things that have challenged us. In the question that we learned to keep asking each other that was the most effective was, what is God like teaching you in this? Which is, what are we learning, right? But just that little phrase there, because it immediately hit this reset within me of like, oh, you're right. This is about something more.
Yeah, right.
And so whenever Ashton would be having a hard day or struggling through something, and I would ask, hey, remember, isn't God teaching you something here? What is he saying to you? Who does he call you? You know, and it's like all of a sudden the whole paradigm shifts. I mean, you're so right. I mean, but gosh, as men, we don't want to ask for directions, and we want to solve the problem right away.
We do.
But with
but if
it
we
does
can
produce
change that.
intimacy though
Yeah.
too, right?
Right.
Because like at least for me with Kiki, the moment I was slow down enough
That's the key.
to be like, okay, so all right, so what are you learning through that? What do you think God's trying to teach you through it? And especially if she's felt heard, you know, like, and because I can't ask that too quick.
No.
You know, I can't be like, you know, she starts to explain, so so what's God teaching you through it? Because it's like, she's like, I don't know, he's teaching you to be quiet though, you know, like, and so to slow down enough to where she feels heard first, but then to where I can just ask the question, and again, like, if we're trying to like remove complexity from spiritual leadership in a marriage or spiritual leadership in a home, I think that's simple.
Yeah.
I think that's really simple, to just ask the question and ask more questions of ourselves, but also of people around us. So what are you learning through that? What do you think God's trying to teach you right now? What's going to be your takeaway from this? Any of that language with our wives, or even let's take it with our kids. Okay? And I know I find myself, especially maybe less so with Kiki, more so with my kids. Like I'm like, oh, well, here's what you need to learn right now. You know, like I'm way quicker on directives with them. Now, what I'm learning as my kids get older, you know, because I now have a 22-year-old, my oldest. My baby is now 11. Okay, which is crazy to me. But man, I'm having to get a lot better at asking questions. I'm having to get a lot better at asking questions. If I want to be involved in their lives, because it's just like the older they get, involvement, both for their good, but also for our good. And my involvement in their life has to be more questions. And like what I'm finding, you guys, what I'm learning is if I can just ask questions of gratitude and I can ask questions of learning.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's your takeaway from that? What are you learning? And I mean, in my mind, I've still got like, this is what you need to be learning.
Yeah,
You know, like,
yeah.
have you not figured this out yet?
Yeah.
But man,
Yeah.
if I'll just slow down enough to ask them, and again, if I engage in dialogue, well, what do you think? Oh, okay. Why do you think that? What's your takeaway then? So what do you think you'll do because of that? All these questions, these are questions of learning. What will you do with it? What do you think you'll do different next time? Like all of that stuff. Man, it's like, and I think maybe I've said this on here before. If not, I know I've said it to you guys. Like one of my highest earthly goals is I want to have grown kids that want to be around me. I've got some eternal goals, but like one of my greatest earthly goals is I have grown kids that want to be around me. What I'm finding is the way to that win is to ask more questions and ask more questions of learning of my kids. Like, okay, so what are you learning? What's your takeaway? And man, it's producing abundance in our relationship. Like, and what ends up happening, this is awesome, is as I ask that question, you know what they ask me more? What do you think, Dad? Oh, I'm so glad you asked. You know, like because then they invite, right?
Yes.
Because it's produced trust, it's produced intimacy, it's produced now I'm being shaped into something, and now they're inviting me back into their lives.
Yeah.
What a privilege.
Yeah.
What a privilege.
Yeah. And, you know, the pastoral counselor, Mads Daisel, she told me a few years ago, she said, remember, most people cannot discern the difference between being heard and feeling loved.
Wow. Say that again. Like, that's really good. Say that
So
again.
most people cannot discern the difference between being heard and feeling loved.
Wow.
Yeah. That's
So-
incredible.
So doing that active listening, you ask the question that invites them to allow you to listen,
Yeah.
shows love. And it creates that margin of space that allows, and it creates this safe space for them to ask, what do you think?
Yeah.
Because to help specifically with our kids and our co-workers and people that have done something wrong. People know when they've done something wrong. We don't need to teach our kids when they're 2 years old. What did you do? Nothing. You know, and they've got a cookie behind their back. So they know when something is done wrong. So having to teach them that is not the thing. And then we again get to the place of directives and just these are the rules and this is the boundaries. And just there's a gentleness that comes in there, and it allows space for the Holy Spirit to work through you, through your kids, through your wife, through your co-workers. It allows that space because they are now feeling loved. And when people feel loved, they'll do, and you can go to war with them.
Yeah. All right. So this principle of learning, we're saying it can take place in good and bad. It can be looking up or down, so to speak, positionally. It's something that we can live in our own lives in a way that if we engage with God, for one, there's always more to know, and that knowing is actually access to eternity. And that it's like a never-ending thing that produces intimacy. It also it grows us or shapes us for a lot of times the next thing, you know, like that's God's always preparing us for. Whether we call that kind of in the desert, so to speak, preparing us for the promised land, or preparing us for eternity, and we can lead in it, and we lead in it by asking great questions, and that happens in community and through dialogue, and I think all of that stuff is like we can practice that, and if we're going to be rising tide men, in other words, men that are transforming the culture of our homes, of our marriages, of our communities, of our businesses. If we're going to be rising tide men that are transforming culture, we have to learn to be in this space of engaging with learning all the time, and leading in it. And I think there's so much more that we could talk about practice of it, but I think there's enough stuff there that we can go and we can do it. And so So I, hope for all of us, and for me, like I'm definitely like leaving with a man, like I need to do more of this, both with God, but was also with people around me, and I hope there's some things in this episode that you're like, man, like this is a takeaway, and please, like, don't just be a hearer of the word, but be a doer also. And so let's engage with this, and let's see if God can't change the culture of our own lives, the culture of our families, our marriages, our communities, our businesses. And together, with God's help, we can change the world. God bless you guys.